Welcome to Blurred Lines, Crime, Conspiracy, and the Truth Behind the Gossip, hosted by me, Ash, or Ashtootrippy. Join me as I deep dive into the murky world where crime, conspiracy, and the juiciest gossip collide. This is a deep dive episode where we peel back the layers of mystery, uncovering the fact, the theories, and the whispers that blur the lines between truth and fiction. Whether it's unsolved cases, mind-bending conspiracies, or the latest scandal, I bring a fresh perspective and fearless approach to unraveling the unknown. So get ready for a wild ride where nothing is off limits, because sometimes the line between reality and rumor is a little blurred. Welcome in, guys. Welcome back, my crime, conspiracy, and gossip lovers. How you doing today? Today is not an updates. I know the last two episodes have been updates, and I want to start this off by saying this is a deep dive. We are going to go into the Ladybird Lake killings and conspiracy. I want you guys to go and watch my YouTube video first, because in that video, I do go over a little bit more of the killing specific people and things like that have been investigated and what cops are saying about it and stuff like that. This is solely going to be a deep dive of new things and maybe a little bit of conspiracy that we may have found with the Ladybird Lake itself. So with that being said, I do want to start this podcast by letting you guys know, of course, follow me on my YouTube. Even if you listen to this podcast a different way, follow me on my YouTube channel. I do post a lot of different things. Again, my TikTok channel as well. Those are the username on both of those is Ashtootrippy. So if you guys don't know, my name is Ashley and I'm too trippy, of course. I know that was super cheesy. I want to let you guys know, go follow me over there. Really interesting. And I want to tell you guys, so this is going to be a deep dive. Now, the reason I wanted to do this deep dive is to kind of get things rolling and understand what I want out of this podcast. Now, essentially, I want there to be two drops of a podcast a week, with the one being on Tuesday, which is our updates podcast about random things that have happened. And then I want to essentially this be on Friday. Now, you may not listen to this till Saturday because I am behind. Now, what I'm going to do next week is you won't get two episodes. You will only get the one updates episode. And what I'm going to do next week is I'm going to plan out my whole month of March for deep dives, so I can just have them ready, have them all set to go, and then we'll go from there, because my voice has been kind of struggling, because as you guys know, I don't only do this, but I also do TikTok and I go live and I read books on my YouTube channel, and all of that requires my voice. And as some people have said on my TikTok, it's a Disney princess voice, kind of an inside joke over there. With that being said, just be sure you guys are following. Essentially, the schedule will be Thursdays and Fridays will be official podcast drops, with Tuesdays being our updates and Fridays being our deep dives. Again, as always, if you guys have any suggestions or anything you guys even want me to look into or anything like that, send me an email. It's ashtootrippy@gmail.com, or you can message me on any of my social media sites. Again, I go by Ashtootrippy on my Instagram, YouTube, and my TikTok. On TikTok, I also have a page for the podcast, Blurred Lines, Crime, Conspiracy, and the Truth Behind the Gossip. Okay, guys? So be sure you're following all those sources. Let's get to it. So Austin, Texas, the Ladybird Lake. Now, if you guys don't know much about Austin, Texas, it's very scenic. Kind of gives a little bit of a Southwest Chicago feel, in my opinion. The main thing about Austin is the Ladybird Lake, which runs directly through Austin itself. And not only does that run directly through where there's a University of Texas at Austin, but there's also a strip that is full of bars, because again, you're by a university, so you have a lot of bars in the area. So a lot of people have said this has contributed to a lot of things that have happened in the Ladybird Lake, as far as not necessarily only killings, but also drownings and all this stuff, because, you know, alcohol is that substance that gets us put in a different mind frame for sure. Now, a little history here on the Ladybird Lake. It was created in 1960. It was created by damming the Colorado River to create what is originally called Town Lake. They actually renamed the lake Ladybird Lake in 2007 after Lady Bird Johnson, the former First Lady. She basically, the reason they named it after her was because she supported preservation and they wanted somewhere for, some people to be. It started becoming a more recreational area. Originally, it was created as cooling pools for a new power plant that they had made there. Again, it's now used mostly for recreation and flood control of the city of Austin. This is very interesting to know that even though you can kayak and do numerous different activities on the water at Ladybird Lake, you cannot swim in the lake. It's for safety reasons. They say that they have like some form of algae that's down there. Now, this is something I heard. This is not true. It's just something I've heard that goes along with, I don't know, I guess conspiracy. They state that there's a bunch of algae down there and it's something that you can get caught in very easily, upon numerous other reasons why I found that this is not allowed, along with like diseases and things like that. The lake does have a bike and hike trail. You can also fish at the lake, but you can't consume the fish. They do stock the lake, but again, you can't consume the fish because the lake there, whatever is in that lake is just not good for human consumption. So anyways, so there's numerous different things, and I'll link the Austin, Texas website for Ladybird Lake. It gives you so many different, it is a beautiful area. Nonetheless, of anything that's happened there, not to say about any of that, it is a beautiful area, and people do motorized vehicles on the water and things like that. So there's also a lot of people that do like the hiking trail that's really, really popular out there. Now, let's get into some of the interesting things, that the reasons why this Ladybird Lake has such a conspiracy, or what people are saying. Basically, they're stating that Austin has a serial killer within it because of so many deaths that have happened around this lake. Not all of them are suspicious, but people seem to think that this is something going on with the lake. This is where we blur those lines between the conspiracy and the truth of what actually happened. Now, there's numerous Facebook groups on Ladybird Lake that they share information and sightings and things like that. So a lot of people, and I don't like to assume that a lot of people don't think there's a serial killer, but I think a lot of people in the city of Austin, especially the younger kids, just really don't believe it. And I don't know, we'll talk about my beliefs later, but a little more information on that is as of January of this year, so January 2025, 14 deaths have been reported since 2022. A lot of people are like, okay, well, what about things prior to that? Now, you have to remember that records weren't kept the same as they were prior to anything that we have started to keep. And not only that is, I think people weren't looking. I think a lot of people may have did, suicide, or may have just been in a really bad place, homelessness, alcohol consumption, things like that. But we have to remember that there has been over at least 35 to 40 killings in this lake. So it's actually around 30 bodies since 2008, which in 2007, the lake was renamed. So very weird on that part too. The local police state that there's no proof or evidence to support allegations of a serial killer, and they call these conspiracy theories. So then again, that's where I let you guys know, hey, like, this is literally like crime and what the cops are saying, combined with a conspiracy theory of so many people saying it's a serial killer, saying that there's something that's going on within these waters, or the minerals that are under the waters, that is causing just these deaths in different ways, very different ways. Now, the most recent death was in 2024. 2 bodies have been found more recently. It was near the Ladybird Lake. So the first one was February 5th of 2024. A woman's body was found. Her name was Ariel, and it's no longer being investigated. They stated it's not a homicide. She was basically found near the lake, so it wasn't inside the lake. Now there was another one in April where a body was recovered under a bridge. So I actually looked up this bridge. It was a path under a bridge. So the way it is of course, any body of water, you're gonna have to have time to come over. Essentially, it's a bridge like structure, so there's a lot of places for people to either be under there and be living, or hide under there, or even take a body down there. And it's directly across, it's so weird that it's directly across from the state capitol. Where this happened was under a bridge that was directly across from the state capitol. And I don't know, I just found that really weird. A similarity between a lot of these people is that they're mostly male, and most were found near a same area, which was, to my understanding, that same area was kind of situated between that bridge and like a little walking trail between there. So a lot of the bodies are found in a similar area, which then takes us to, we talk about Rainey Street, which Rainey Street, if you look it up, is by the university. It's a strip of basically alcohol establishments, bars, cater to the young adults at the universities. That could be why, but again, don't know. There was very few underlining similarities other than the lake itself. So again, everybody that has died at Ladybird Lake is pretty much the only connection between all of them is that they were at the lake at some point in time and obviously died near or by it. So there's a Reddit account in the Austin community. I remember this happening. I had made a TikTok about it, I believe, and he had confessed to murdering people, and he stated that targeted the LGBTQ bars and culture, and they dubbed him the Rainey Street Killer. Now, the interesting part about this is if you go to TikTok, I don't know if it's still up or not, you'd have to go over there, but if you go to TikTok, there was a girl that stated that this was the same guy that posted that Reddit, and he was down on Rainey Street. So a lot of people call this the Rainey Street serial killer, because a lot of the speculation stems down from Reddit or from Facebook groups of, is this because people have admitted to doing it? But we also know that there's sick people in the world that will admit to doing things and not necessarily it happening. We talk about it in the Melissa Moore, the happy face killer, Keith Jesperson. Somebody had took the fall for his first murder. Things like that is just people just want some kind of escape from whatever they're going through, or want the credibility of something so malice, you know what I mean? Now, a lot of people were saying that this was due to the smiley face killer. Not to get twisted with happy face, because they're not the same. Smiley face killers, basically they struck in 25 states, and they were basically stating that they were doing the killings and that it was like a group effort of a bunch of people trying to get away with doing these random stuff. They thought this because there were smiley faces found near and by the Ladybird Lake, and people would like to believe that maybe that's the reason why, because there's so many killings and there's just this group of essentially killers walking around, which I don't believe that part. I think that whole smiley face thing has really come to a head. I think that they realized that it was just stupid. I think a few of them even got caught, so I don't believe that part. There's also been cars that have been found by the lake and actually in the lake a few times. Another death of a man on September 29th of 2024. This was at 2:16 p.m. Somebody had actually called 911, stated a man was screaming and yelling and then crawling on the bank and rolling into the river. So basically, they called the police. This guy was acting really crazy. The caller also said he could hear the man screaming while swimming and punching the air until he went underwater and didn't surface. They did try to save him because they knew the area where he was at, because of course this guy was calling 911, but later he did end up passing away. So that's the portion where I was telling you guys that, like, it's really weird. You get these instances where, of course, like, mental health could of course be a factor in this, but you get these instances where you hear from people that are like, oh my god, people were acting kind of crazy before. And that goes along with the car they found in there. The car they found in there was supposedly driven into there by somebody, and somebody ended up like escaping it or something like that. I don't know the full story on that, but it's weird that this lake has such kind of like a, and I hate to be ominous like this again with the conspiracy theories, it has like a hold on people, and people just can't stop from doing whatever they're doing. Now again, not to discredit, this man could have been under some kind of psychosis or drug or alcohol. There's so many different things that could have been happening with that man. Now again, over 30 bodies have been found since 2008. Again, there's not much before then, but again, you also have to remember that this wasn't like a recreational place back in the day. This was made essentially for a power plant in the area, so people weren't always like swimming there, going there. And you also have to remember, I'm sure there wasn't as many bars around, and again, population, people coming for the university and moving into the state and things like that. So there's a lot of factors that go into that as well. What they have found is over the past 5 years, these discoveries of these bodies has significantly spiked, like over the past 5 years. And that also tells us that the possibility of a serial killer is very high, because we know from psychologically studying serial killers that they will continue and they progress. It doesn't ever go away. It continues. So that's also a very concerning point that I have seen, that it just steadily keeps increasing. It doesn't decrease. It either stays the same or increases in it. Every other lake like this has very few deaths, and most deaths can be explained as boating accidents or due to alcohol. There's so many other lakes that have been studied or have been shown to be accident prone, but it's due to other factors, not like this, not like suicide, not like some homicide, because if you guys go back and listen to my YouTube about this, there has been homicides as well here that that are still under investigation, because obviously they don't know who did it. Now, most bodies that I found, again, they were found at the 300 West Cesar Chavez Street in Austin, Texas. And again, I made the discovery that this was the address for Austin City Hall, which is directly across the street from the First Street Bridge, which means the lake runs underneath, and it does have a lot of good hiding areas. Since it's under a bridge, it has so many good hiding areas for people to either attack or for people to have the coverage. Like, people aren't going to be, if you pull this up, and I'll link the Austin City page on the show notes on the account. You can't see, like, even if you're just driving by, it's not something you can see from the road. You know what I mean? So it's very good cover. I would really like to know if Austin City State Police ever searched down there and maybe discovered anything, or if it was just something, because to me, the way it is that the only thing they've done is they pull the bodies, they try to save them. If they can't, they pronounce them dead. They kind of say, oh, well, yeah, this was homeless person, or this was a person that was drunk, or this was a person that didn't know what they were doing, they're on drugs, whatever. I don't feel like things have been investigated. Again, I might be wrong, but I haven't found anything that tells me that things have been investigated to the point where it's like, okay, let's look at this location because this is where most of the bodies were found at. I haven't seen that at all. And it's not to discredit, because again, if there's no connections, how are the police supposed to be like, oh, well, yeah, this is a serial killer? Because there isn't any connection. Now, yes, a majority of them are men, but there has been a few women that have been killed as well near the lake. Again, I say near because a lot of the bodies aren't found in the lake. There's very few, like you can probably count them on your fingers how many have exactly been found, and I can't give you it off my head, but you can probably count how many have been found inside the lake. It's weird. Even with the recent guy that they had to pull him out of the lake, he didn't die in the lake because he was still alive. They tried to resuscitate him. They ended up taking him into the hospital, and he later died in the hospital. It's very strange to me. Now, let's talk about conspiracies here. And again, I'll let you guys know my opinion shortly. Conspiracies. Now, I am a very spiritual person in a sense where I believe water is essential for spiritual meaning, for cleansing, for all of that stuff, right? But also, you guys do understand that water is a strong connection to kind of opening up your faith. It's a good way for anything bad to enter your vibration. You know what I mean? With that coupled with, I wonder if they've studied any kind of minerals that are within the water or even beneath the water. Because again, we have to remember that this runs from the Colorado River. Right before you get to Ladybird Lake, there's a couple of coves that are natural hot springs or natural springs that have many minerals in them. Now, this water runs into the Ladybird Lake because it is fed through the Colorado River, which the Colorado River feeds these little alcoves that have this. It's very interesting to me, especially with the last person that passed away. I did hear of another instance where a woman, it was said that she was kind of screaming before and they kind of ignored it, and then I guess the next day they ended up finding her dead near the lake, like right at the bank of the lake. It tells me like that you have instances of people like screaming or asking for help and things like that. It begs you to ask the question, like, could it be something spiritual that's happening within the water or something that the lake is doing? I mean, I know it sounds like something straight out of a Stephen King novel, but could it be something that the lake is doing to people, or psychologically, or even like with algae or bacteria and things like that? Could something be doing that? Again, it's illegal to swim in the lake. If you're caught swimming in that lake, you're taken to jail. It's illegal. And again, it's illegal for your own safety. It's very strange to me. It's also, you guys have to keep in mind, I think logically as well too, but I love conspiracies, but I think logically sometimes, and you guys have to remember that the cops have stated they've investigated all the deaths and none of them are connected. It's also not unheard of to say, hey, could there be a serial killer that's striking, doesn't care who they kill? Like, there's been psychopaths enough to where we have like Jeffrey Dahmer, who was cutting up people and eating them, to Ted Bundy, who was just disposing of people like nothing, to John Wayne Gacy, who was putting boys underneath his house. Is it really outside anybody's mind to think that somebody's just killing people just because they see the opportunity and they're doing it? I don't think it's so far-fetched, honestly. I think that it could be something that is hard to track because they're doing that, definitely, but it's definitely a possibility that there is a serial killer in Austin, Texas. I have done the research before, and literally, so it's just mind-blowing to think that people don't think that way, because I've seen numerous videos of people that are like, there always is a connection, there's always something. But you know what? Hollywood movies tell us different. And, there's people that are obsessed with Hollywood movies. And, there's people that are obsessed with perfection. So it's not far-fetched to think, hey, somebody that's completely psychopathic is just killing whoever, whenever, just because they can and they want to. Don't you think? Okay, so I'm going to get a little bit into my opinion on this case. Now, again, it's not a case. It's many cases that have been closed over time. Basically, none of them connect. The only connection between all of these over 30 bodies that have been discovered by Ladybird Lake, all of these cases, the only thing that they have in common is the lake itself. So that's what I feel is what we need to look into. I know it's a conspiracy theory and all this stuff, but I feel like even if it is a killer, there's something about that lake. There has to be something about that lake that gets people to either do these things or gets this person to want to dispose of so many bodies in or around that lake. Aside from the fact that there's plenty of cover and there's plenty of victims in the area, I feel like there could be also, if it's not a serial killer, there could be kind of an epidemic that's happening in Austin where, you know, either mental health or the way people are living, that maybe Austin city limits needs to look into maybe supporting its residents a little bit better, or trying to keep an eye out for certain things a little bit better, maybe even patrols around the area. To my understanding, there's a lot of people in the area that don't believe it, but there is very few that do. And to keep those people safe, along with the college students in the at the nearby college that, you know, just want to enjoy their weekends at the bars and things like that, I think it would be smart to have a essential, like, just patrol, like a Ladybird Lake patrol. I know it's really hard to hire and get funding for stuff like that, but ever since I dived into this case a couple years ago, or about a year ago, I was just super intrigued with the fact that they can put up cameras, there's so many other things that can be done, drones, hiring people that are only patrolling that area to find out and kind of pinpoint what exactly is happening, you know what I mean? And if they find that it's a crisis to do with mental health, then the city of Austin can take those steps to help its residents with those mental health issues. My opinion, again, I like to think logically, but every time I get into this case, because I've looked into it numerous times, every time there's a killing, I go back and I listen to different things, and I listen to podcasts, and there's not too much out there about this. Not many people update their podcasts or their YouTube videos on this. So again, the bodies just keep stacking from whenever you hear episodes of this. Now again, there has been homicides there at Ladybird Lake that have been investigated, but nobody has ever been arrested for them. I think there's either 2 or 3 homicide investigations that have taken place due to a death that's happened by Ladybird Lake. With that being said, I think that everybody should just stay open-minded into what could be, or, you know, possibly could not be happening at Ladybird Lake. Both ways. It could be a serial killer, but then again, it could be just the mental health of the community. That's the one thing I want you guys always to remember, that just keep an open mind, because we know as true crimers that things don't always end the way as buttoned up as movies and shows and things like that go. And like I said, this is straight out of a Stephen King book, with a lake possessing people and stuff like that too. So, you know, let's think a little logically. I send a huge shout out to Austin Police. I think that they've done their due diligence in a lot of these cases. Honestly, it's not their fault, because as detectives or as even true crimers, we know to follow connections. We also know that those bodies have been stacking up more and more over the past 5 years. So that's something also to definitely look into and try to understand, you know, why is this happening more and more? And right now, I don't think the city of Austin itself is very worried about it, but I do think that as the year goes on, we're only in February, almost March. I think as the year goes on in 2025, I think that if they find more bodies than they did last year, which I think they ended up finding 5 bodies last year total. So if that even rises by one body, 6, it needs to be looked into deeper. And I think they need to start doing either patrols and or putting cameras, maybe flying drones over there every so often. There's so much technology to use now, so why not utilize it? All right, guys, well, that's all I have for you today. And again, next week, you're only going to get the updates podcast episode on Tuesday, but after the first week of March, you guys will receive the 2 episodes every week, which is the goal is to be Tuesdays and Fridays. I do start a new job where I'm working weekends, so it's gonna be a little tight, but I'm gonna make it work. Be sure you guys are also following me over on my social media accounts under Ashtootrippy. Also, we have a TikTok for the podcast, Blurred Lines, Crime, Conspiracy, and the Truth Behind the Gossip. The username for that is blurred.lines and the number 5. I will always link it down below. I'm working on doing a format for my notes as well. So if you guys liked anything from this episode or didn't like or have opinions, I'd love to hear about them. Leave them in any comment section where this video is at. And if you guys have any case suggestions or you have any stories you'd like to tell me, especially about Ladybird Lake in Austin, Texas, I would love to hear about them. They might show up on our weekly updates podcast. You never know. Shoot me an email at ashtootrippy@gmail.com, or again, you can always DM me on any of my social media platforms. Again, those will be linked below. But I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Continue being awesome. Remember to always be yourself, and we'll talk about it next time, guys. Bye.